everything in our language is predicated on opposites. There is no good without bad, no up without down. So for me to say life has been good, that's, we've experienced difficult times, as everybody has, and you overcome them and you get positive and you go forward. And that's how I feel. I mean, as I said, I've been retired for 15 years, and I think one of the greatest virtues that one can have is gratitude.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Tom Shelby. Tom is an expert dog trainer with a specialty in search and rescue dogs and nearly 4 decades of experience. He was a dog handler at the Westminster Dog Show, trained a dog for an off-Broadway play, and worked with well over 100 rich and famous clients. Because of his dog Michelle's success in finding missing people, he was asked to join the Rockland County Sheriff's Department. He taught group classes for New York City's Humane Society and Bide-A-Wee, and was a speaker at the Berkshire Search and Rescue Conference. For many years, Tom was judged Best in Show and Obedience at the annual Martha's Vineyard Dog Show. Hi, Tom.
Hi, how you doing, Broderick?
Really good. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. You're such a funny guy, and I hope the audience I hope the audience enjoyed this conversation as much as I know I'm about to enjoy it. So I'm very happy that you're here.
Well, the last time we saw each other, we both had a lot more hair. I do remember that.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. I had long dreadlocks then, didn't I? Wow.
Yes, things change over time.
Definitely. Now, I won't get any dreadlocks now at the top of this head. It's bald now. But I'm excited to speak with you. To me, you're a special person, and you have a lot of wisdom in your stories. You just wrote a book, Dog Training. It ain't. So, audience, those of you who are watching this, I'm going to put this book up. Dog Training. It ain't an accountant's job. So here it is. Here's the book. It's amazing. I encourage you to go out and get it. I haven't finished reading it myself, but I'm in the process. And Tom's stories are just funny, hilarious. So I think you might want to check that out. And I think some of the stuff that's in that book is going to come out in this podcast. I know on this show, we don't focus on a particular book per se. We really focus on someone's personal philosophy on life at the end of the day. That's what we're doing. But before I say anything else about jumping into the big question of what living well means. So I know I just read that introduction, but I like guests to introduce themselves. So take a few moments here to say a little bit about yourself, anything you would like to share.
Hi, folks. As Broderick said, I'm Tom Shelby, and it was Mark Twain who said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And training dogs to me has been getting paid to play intelligently with dogs and getting them to cooperate. It's been wonderful. I also I think I should mention where the title of the book came from, because I think it's an interesting story. I had to call my accountant so he understood I wasn't saying anything negatively about accounting. I don't know, Broderick, 25 years ago, my wife Jay and I were having dinner with two couples, and one of the guys used to call me Dog Man, and he said, if you have any interesting stories, any interesting lessons coming up. And I said, well, actually, tomorrow I have to see a dog owned by a lady who lives with her elderly mother. She took her mother to the doctor, and while she was out, a thief broke into the house and
Mm.
not very happy. It killed the smaller dog with a vase, and the larger dog had what's called a barking collar on. People had complained the dog barked too much, so it would get a little electric stimulation every time it barked. So every time it barked at the thief, it got a shock. When the women came home to this tragedy, she took the collar off the dog, and I was called 11 months later because in the ensuing 11 months, she couldn't put a collar on the dog. The dog wouldn't allow it. It would bite her. She called the vet who couldn't do it. She called the dog trainer who ended up in the emergency room with a deep bite in his arm. And that was my lesson the next day. I had to go get a collar on the dog. And one of the women we were having dinner with exclaimed, and this is 25 years ago, and I never forgot it. She said, who has a job like this where you have to fight with a dog? Why couldn't you have been an accountant? And that's literally where the title of the book came from. And that's the last story in the book dealing on that with that particular lesson. As I said, if you love what you do, it's not work. It's the enjoyment of of doing something in life that not only you enjoy, but it helps people. And giving to me is very important. I have a very giving wife who's one of the good girls, and I think back over the years I've been doing this, probably I would say 65 to 75% of the calls I got were for dogs that were problematic, that had issues. It wasn't just basically teach them to come, sit, and stay. So I had the pleasure in life of being able to really help people live in harmony. And the harmony wasn't just between the people and the dog, but people would also conflict with each other over how to deal with the issues with the dog. So, I felt very good often by creating family harmony. Um, you know, that was, one of the benefits of what I do. And I've certainly enjoyed it. Now I've been retired for 15 years. I used to have 800 appointments a year training dogs.
Mm.
As I said, most for problem dogs. And now I have one or two trainings a month, or three or four in a month. I had one this last Monday with a Jack Russell Terrier that bit the owners a couple of times, and I think that issue is resolved. The dog was biting out of fear, and there are 6 to 8 reasons that, depending on who you read and how you define aggression, that cause dogs to bite. And the great majority are fear biters. They bite out of fear.
Mm.
So, life has been very good. My wife still tolerates me after 105 years of marriage. So, I really have no complaints, Broderick. Things are good. Things are good.
Love it.
What else can I tell you? It's, as Mark Twain said, you love what you do. It's not work. It's the enjoyment of living, helping people.
Love it. I love it, Tom. I think that really segue into the main question of this podcast is so what does living well mean to you? What does it mean to have a good life?
Well, what does living well mean to me? I think I've lived well in that my wife still tolerates me. And my wife calls it a low bar, but I have 3 children. And as I said to her, well, none of them are in jail and they're not hocking us for money. So we did something right in the parenting. And as my wife says, that's a pretty low bar. But, I, raising 3 kids is, um, is a pleasure most of the time, but there's everything in our language is predicated on opposites. There is no good without bad, no up without down. So for me to say life has been good, that's we've experienced difficult times, as everybody has, and you overcome them and you get positive and you go forward. And that's how I feel. I mean, as I said, I've been retired for 15 years, and I I think one of the greatest virtues that one can have is gratitude,
Mm.
and I am extremely grateful. I really am grateful that I've survived all the stupid things I did in my youth. I took a 10,000-mile motorcycle trip around the country, and three of us left Queens, New York. And I remember thinking we had seen prior to that trip the movie Easy Rider. And all of us discussed later on, saying probably one of us will die on this trip, and none of us did. And we survived that. And, I think of all the things that youthful people do that aren't as smart as can be. And, that's the reality. And I've survived and survived well. And I really am grateful. I think about that every day. I have gratitude. Um, I really do. Um, I've adopted two dogs and kind of saved both of them. Um, One's a poodle I adopted 10 years ago. Her name's Paula Jean. And I was asked 2.5 years ago to help a doctor here with her dog, and I ended up adopting that dog. Um, and I've named him Jeffrey Phillip. People have said to me, "Why'd you name him Jeffrey?" And I said, because I've never, with all the dogs I've met a dog named Jeffrey. So I figured that would be something new. Nor have I met a dog named Paula Jean, who's my older dog. So my philosophy in life is help where you can, with what you're good at. And one of the things I'm pretty good at is teaching people to harmonize with their dogs. And like I said, I really am grateful for. I'm grateful for having met you, Broderick. I think when you were still going to Bastille, am I correct? You were still
Yes.
in Bastille
Mhm.
with my daughter, and I've always been grateful to know you. And the time we spent together hanging out was
Mhm.
good. I still have in my previous book. You can tell some of your listeners if they get that book. There's a beautiful picture of Broderick sitting on my couch with my Doberman on his lap and my little mini pin, who I adopted from the Swiss ambassador. Actually, I helped him train his dog, and both those dogs are on your lap. And if I remember correctly, you said I have to call my parents; they'll never believe I have a Doberman on my lap.
No.
Yes, for coming out of the South, being a black man coming out of the South, having a Doberman on your lap is not the norm.
No.
So I never forgot that. And to your listeners, you're definitely one of the good guys on the planet. And
Oh.
I've always recognized that and appreciated that. And would also say to you, I'd love it if you came out and visited me on the other side of the country. We could hang out and have some pretty good times. Um,
Definitely.
I know you stay in shape. We hike, almost 2 to 3 miles every day in the woods, and it's very, very beautiful here. I'm in Cooperstown, New York, and it's lots of woodlands. We have a 10-mile lake that's 265 feet deep. I have a
Wow.
pontoon boat that you can come hang out with. with us on and enjoy. So I'd love it if you came out to visit.
For
And the next
sure.
time I'm going to see Tara, I'm going to make sure we get together. Tara, for the listeners, is my oldest daughter, and it is through Tara that I had the fortune to meet Broderick.
You're very kind and generous, Tom. uh, I want to say, I mean, there's so much in there, like doing what you love to do, and gratitude, helping and supporting others, and you're so good at what you do. I want to draw out a little bit about your story of how did you get into dog training? What made you choose to do this?
You know, it's kind of interesting. In the 70s, there were a bunch of us who lived together, and we referred to it as Animal House because it was four couples. Um, we had two dogs, a cat, hamsters, fish, doves. That's why we called it, and snakes. That's why we called it Animal House. We had lots of animals. And after the motorcycle trip, we decided to open a business to fix motorcycles. And we bought some trucks, and people kept asking us to move their furniture. And we morphed into a moving company. And my wife came up with the name Any Movers, anything, anytime, any place, not just any movers. And we had a very successful moving business for quite a few years. And then it was time, after a bunch of years, all of us living together, where the ladies were talking about having children and time to move into our own apartments and the like. So we sold the business and we had some money. And Jay and I, my wife Jay, decided to take a long trip and somewhere in the world. And my mother and Jay were looking at maps of the world and deciding where should we travel. And I just opened the newspaper thinking, when we get back from this trip, I'm going to need to get some kind of job. And I opened the paper, and there was an advertisement said dog trainer wanted, experience necessary. So I called him on the spot and lied a little bit about my experience and got hired. And the guy got hired immediately. And that was the end of the planned trip. And he handed me a list of about 35 names, said, call them and start helping them with their dogs. And I quickly read two books. Trying to remember Matt Margolis, his book. I don't remember what the title was. We're going back a whole lot of years. And another book on dog training. And just went and, as the cover on my book says, experience is the best teacher. And I kept reading books, and that's how literally, and I found out how much I loved it and
Mm.
how much satisfaction an owner of a dog that was constantly jumping on people or urinating when it shouldn't in the house, et cetera, et cetera. The satisfaction that these people got when I helped end the problems. I mean, that's literally how I got into it. I just kind of bluffed my way in, kept reading, kept learning, and as I said, the best teacher to me is experience.
Hmm.
And the more experience I got, being cognizant, um, and now I have, this is my third book. The second book with a picture of Broderick sitting in my house with the two dogs on his lap is called Dog Training Diaries. And that was judged by Dog Writers Association as one of the three best training manuals for dog training. This book, It Ain't an Accountant's Job. I got a million stories having been in so many homes. That is just stories, like It Ain't an Accountant's Job, that particular one. I also refer in the book to what I refer to as the RAFs, the rich and famous. And I can tell you they're no better with their dogs than the non-rich and famous. I trained Eddie Murphy's dog and Joan Rivers and Chris Rock and John McEnroe, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and they have the same problems uh, the non-super rich have, which is interesting. And I had a good time meeting with these people. My wife used to say, "Isn't it a little intimidating when you meet somebody like that?" And the reality was no, because their knowledge, they had no understanding of what's going on with their dogs, and I did. So they questioned me. And it turned out to be a lot of fun. I got kind of close to a few of these people, and that's why I'm grateful. I mean, the experiences I've had have left me with nothing but gratitude that how lucky I am, in all aspects of life. And I still get to help people, not at 800 appointments a year, but, I have friends who have a dog, and free of charge, um, I'll give them the advice or work a few minutes with their dog and transfer the leash to them and help them. I also now, not having to pay for the raising of three children and three kids to go to college. I recently saw a couple who lived in a trailer who couldn't afford much and was fortunate enough to say no charge. My pleasure. I like the dog. I like the people. So I now am grateful that I can give um, as I'm able to give. So like I said, the more and I used to say to Jay, the more I give, the more I get. Just the feelings of the good feelings that result.
Hmm. Love it, Tom, and it's so beautiful. I'm glad you said all that because I mean, this is you. This is the person that So, audience, this he's genuine. He is a giver. He's a good guy. He's a funny guy, and he really stresses giving. You see how helping people has come up several times so far, and creating harmony in families, doing what you love to do. You know, these are important parts of living a good life. And I know that, so I want to say, I mean, kind of the elephant in the room here. Why do you think, because a lot of people have dogs, what's the benefit of having a dog and how does that relate to someone living a good life? Why are dogs so popular?
It's a great question, Broderick. Depending on where you read, there are 75 to 90 million dogs in the country. I
Wow.
can tell you that single men or women, older men or women, statistically live 15% longer when they own a dog.
Hmm.
And when you think about it, it's not just the comfort of the lack or the less loneliness, the comfort of having a dog, but it also requires taking the dog out, the feeding, the care. It makes the older person much more involved and much more physically and mentally active. So there's a great benefit for older people. And harmonizing with animals, to me, draws you closer to nature.
Hmm.
Um, you know, as I said, we hike almost 2 to 3 miles every day in the woods. And there's a particular tree on one of the hikes that I refer to as Wild One because this tree it just bends in every different direction imaginable. It's probably 70 feet high. And to me, it connects me to nature. Every time I pass that tree, I put my hands on it and say a little prayer to basically nature. I mean, I've been reading that trees actually communicate through their root systems and
Hmm.
help each other. So to me, my God is nature. And the connection to nature to me is emphasized and accentuated through the dog. The dogs, and most people really have no idea uh, how smart their dogs really are. There's no domestic animal that denotes body language of human better than a dog.
Mm.
And when you pick up on that, you it enhances both your and the dog's understanding of each other. It can be very subtle. With my experience, it's not that subtle. It's pretty obvious. But the dogs offer the connection to nature, and that's very real. I mean, I've met an awful lot of people with 800 appointments a year. Uh, I remember helping a homeless man on the streets of Manhattan who had a dog, and we started talking, and I just gave him some tips on dealing with the dog, and I can't tell you how good it made me feel when he expressed how grateful he was for understanding some of the things the dog was doing and not doing, not
Mm.
cooperating. And I just gave him some simple tips, and the dog will cooperate with you. As I said, my last lesson was Monday. Um, and what day is today? Whatever. I'm retired for 15 years. Every day is like a Saturday or a Sunday,
Right.
which is very nice. Um,
Uh,
and they called me to thank me after the lesson, um, twice. First with another question, and a second time with a thank you for how much better things are in the house. And this to me is what it's all about. When you can help people like that, life is good. It doesn't get better, and I am grateful. I am extremely grateful um, for my ability to give just through the experience of what I've learned dealing with uh, all the things I've dealt with. I also, and you'll see in the book, I had in the very beginning of my career, I answered an ad, and I that had 16 dogs that were trained as guard dogs to be rented or sold as guard dogs, and that experience was extraordinary. It was because it enabled me to become the go-to guy by all the veterinarians of dealing with aggressive dogs. The vet would say, "I'm not telling you to euthanize the dog. Call Shelby, and he'll tell you the truth, whether this is redeemable or not." And it's made it a little more exciting than just teaching the toy poodle to come sit and stay, dealing with a dog that's really aggressive. And as I said, there are 6 to 8 different types of aggression that a dog could present, the most common being fear. There's pain aggression. If a dog breaks a leg and you pick it up to bring it to the vet and it snaps at you for moving the broken leg, the pain caused the dog's aggression. So there's different types. There's resource guarding, where you go to pet the dog when it's eating and it growls. The resource then is the food, doesn't want to
mm.
share the food. That can get very subtle. Grandma can be sitting on the couch with her grandchild. I, I'm sorry, with the toy poodle, and the grandchild approaches and the toy poodle starts growling. The resource then is the grandma. It doesn't want to share
Mm.
grandma with the kid because it knows grandma's going to dump the dog and pick up the kid. So there's a lot to it, and again, it's what makes life worth living. And now I should tell you, I'm writing my first novel and
Awesome.
having a great time with it because you can make up stuff every day, and that's been a lot of fun. Needless to say, it's about a canine cop, because I kind of know what I'm talking about with the cop dealing with the dog. But I'm having a good time writing. It's good for the head too. As we continue getting not younger, the mental stimulation is important, and
Mm-hmm.
writing and exercise. We got to keep moving as we continue getting not younger. That's for sure. And I remember you. What was it called? Capoeira.
Yeah, capoeira. Yeah.
Capoeira. I remember that. I think my daughter Tara said you're still doing that. Is
Oh
correct?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Definitely.
If I remember correctly, that was a Brazilian disguised type of dancing, which was really self defense.
Hmm.
Um, yes, I remember that. So you're still doing that. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
delighted to hear it. You
Oh
look
yeah.
great, Broderick. So,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
um,
Capoeira.
yeah. So what else can I tell you, man?
Man, you have a lot. I love how you're. And I knew this was going to come out. Well, I had an idea that this was going to come out. I didn't know for sure, but as you share your stories and your experiences, you're also sharing those nuggets of wisdom about life. Exercising, being out in nature, connecting with nature through the dog, for instance, and writing. How writing and engaging your intelligence, your intellect, is important, and writing is a great way to do that. Writing, reading. It seems like you read a lot as well, and that keeps the mind activated, and it's really important part of living a life, a meaningful life, a life worth living. Is
I,
keeping the
I
mind stimulated.
also, I also, which I didn't mention, have two columns. I have a weekly column in the Martha's Vineyard Times, because I
Awesome.
lived there for 10 years. It's called Ask the Dog Charmer. People send in questions about their dogs. And now living in Cooperstown, New York, somebody told me the newspaper here called the Freeman's Journal is the oldest newspaper in the country. I haven't verified that. But, still going back to James Fenimore Cooper. And I have a column here, same thing, where I ask the dog charmer, they send in their questions. So I very much enjoy the writing, and I do a fair amount of that. And as you said, the mental stimulation, the physicality of hiking every day. I also, if I didn't mention, they there's a beautiful gym less than a quarter of a mile away from where I live, a gym like I've never seen before. It has 3 swimming pools and everything you can imagine. And including today, I swim every other day. And I'm looking to bring it up to 3/4 of a mile,
Wow.
because swimming to me is one of the best exercises. It does it all,
Mhm.
especially the breathing. I was stupid enough in my youth to smoke a pack and a half of Marlboro for 20 years. So now I'm trying to compensate by swimming and breathing, and it's wonderful. It's another thing. If I can get you to come visit Broderick, well, you'll enjoy this gym. Believe me, you can do. They even have a climbing wall for children. They have a
Wow.
connection center. They have people share books and stories about the books they've read. It's everything
Oh.
imaginable. It's a real terrific community center. It's an interesting town, Cooperstown. It really is. It's not a typical upstate New York town, because of what's called the Clark Foundation. The money keeps coming in because it's the Hall of Fame is here, the
Hmm.
Baseball Hall of Fame, and it's a pretty special place. So I'm very lucky being here, and I got here because one of my daughters married a kid who grew up here, and his friends visited us all the time, which gave us the connection to Cooperstown, and I came to realize it's not your typical upstate New York town. So it's nice. Now, do you have snow down there now? Probably not.
No,
No,
no.
exactly. We have we have about 4 inches, which is no big deal. It's been like ambient snow, very pretty, but no real accumulation.
Mm.
And, it's another thing of, I like the different seasons. I don't mind the snow. We hike in the snow, just as well. And it's very, very beautiful. The
Mm-hmm.
trails in autumn, Jay and I, my wife Jay and I, will often just hop in the car and drive around the lake. As I said, the lake's 10 miles long, and the colors of autumn are just so extraordinary. It's breathtaking. So we just
Mm.
drive around the lake to enjoy the colors of autumn. And the trails also, even in winter where the trees are denuded, they're absolutely beautiful. So again, it's the connection to nature and the lake we swim in. Somebody said to me, it was considered the fifth cleanest lake of its size in the country. I have
Wow.
no idea if that's valid, but I have never seen a piece of garbage floating in it, except a year or so ago. I was just telling a friend of mine who was visiting. We saw it looked like a piece of garbage, and I ran the boat over to it, and it turned out to be a Yankee hat that flew off somebody's head, which I now have. It wasn't garbage at all. Without embellishment, I have never seen a piece of garbage in the lake. So it's a beautiful environment, and I so appreciated having grown up in Queens, New York, and the trails here, the mountains. It's very, very beautiful, as is Seattle and the outskirts of Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I'm sure you appreciate knowing you, Broderick.
Oh yeah, I love it. I see you're consistently dropping these nuggets and the beauty of nature and the importance of beauty in a life well lived. I mean, beauty is such an important piece of the puzzle, and like those core values of goodness, beauty, and true. And there are others as well, but beauty is such an important piece of the equation. And like you say, I'm with you. In nature, is nothing like it. And watching the seasons change. That's the thing I miss about being here in
The
the Bay
seasonal
Area. You just don't see it. You don't get that fall beauty that you're speaking of, and you just don't see it like that. Um,
extraordinary here, but what one needs is the ability to appreciate the
mm-hmm,
beauty that there are so many people that can drive through here in autumn and not appreciate what they're looking
mm-hmm,
at. They
mm-hmm,
just, going through it without really being cognizant of how beautiful it is. And, often that's excusable. If a guy is, deeply involved in work. He's not retired like I am, where I can sit back and just enjoy the beauty, drive around the lake, which is a 10-mile lake. So it's about 25 miles or 30 miles driving around. If you're working parent with, multiple kids, your head is not as easily able to just sit back and enjoy the view. You're thinking about, I got to buy diapers for the baby. I got to this, I got to that. I got to make a phone, and you're at that age now. You're at a working age. From my perspective, you're an embryo still. You like I said, I've been retired 15 years, so I can really see and appreciate what's around me. And it's not as easy, for younger people to do that. They have to really kind of slap themselves and sit back and say, let me enjoy this, while I have this 10-mile drive, and then I'll get back to business. And I think the dogs has helped me do that over the years. It's really helped me do that very much, um, to get into uh, being lucky enough to get into the appreciation of the nature around me.
awesome. This
Yeah.
is so great. I love it. I love it. All the wisdom that you're dropping, that you're sharing. So we have about 20 more minutes or so to go, and I want to take this time to well, first I'm going to ask you some questions about if someone wanted to. get a dog, what do you recommend? And then I would like for you to share some of your favorite stories of dog training, and then we'll close out. So if I, I'm looking to have a dog, and I want a dog to kind of enhance my life in some capacity, what suggestions do you have for people who would like to get a dog?
I would have to ask them a lot of questions.
No, okay.
Rather than recommend, if you're somewhat allergic or you don't want to have to deal with a lot of shedding, don't get a German Shepherd because they shed
Mm,
tremendously. Um, if you're old and not in great physical shape, I would tell you to get a small dog. If you have an exuberant Labrador Retriever and it pulls you on a leash, you don't need to be dragged and fall down. Short hair versus long hair, size of a dog, your lifestyle. Are you a guy who hikes every day, who walks around, even if you live in inner city in Manhattan or Seattle? Are you looking to walk the streets every day, or are you not? Um, if you live in a place like Cooperstown, which is a lot colder generally than Seattle, and you want to get a small dog, I might say get a Pomeranian. They're quite intelligent and they have a lot of long hair, as opposed to getting a miniature pinscher, which is going to be cold all the time. So, there are questions on the lifestyle that the owner has. If you have young kids, really young kids, and you get an exuberant golden retriever, it may be a little more difficult than you get a smaller dog. I am always a proponent of going to the nearest shelter and adopting a dog, because we're still killing millions of dogs a
mm,
year in shelters, literally millions, and that to me is very disturbing. So there are a lot of dogs that need rescuing. And for older people or physically somewhat disabled people, I tell them get a small dog. If you want a dog, knowing you, Broderick, I got to believe you're pretty physically active. So I would say get a mid-sized dog. You don't have to get a Great Dane or Great Danes. Um, and it's interesting. Great Danes have a short lifespan. In
mm,
all of nature, the larger the animal, the longer the lifspan. Elephants, giant tortoises. Dogs are pretty much man made, and it's the opposite with
mm,
dogs. The smaller the dog, the longer the lifespan. Great Danes, as I said, 8 years, 9 years. Uh, Chihuahuas and Pomeranians and miniature poodles, 15 years. So it's the antithesis because they're pretty much man made. I would suggest to a guy like you who's going to be physically active and hiking trails, a mid sized dog, depending on you and your partner's feeling about hair. They shed somewhat. My search dogs um, were Dobermans because I wanted working breed. I didn't want too small. I needed a dog that could go for 10 miles. And you were asking about a dog story. One is a search, which is mentioned in the book. A husband and wife were arguing about directions. And the husband said to the wife, "All right, you drive." And when she got out of the car, he took off. Kind of a jerk. He came back 5 minutes later. She was missing, gone, could not find her. The police were called. The police called me. I sent the dog off the seat. And just so you understand, you and I have 5 million olfactory cells. The Doberman has about 240 million olfactory cells.
wow.
So I sent the dog off the seat. And as you're sitting or standing, I guess you're sitting, Broderick, as you're sitting there, you're dropping 40,000 dead skin cells a minute. And sending the dog off the seat, when the lady left the car, wherever she went, every minute she was every second she was dropping 40,000 dead skin cells. So that was tracking because as opposed to air scenting off leash, I had the dog on a 40-foot leash. And what happened was the woman was so angry that she hid whenever a car came by and her husband couldn't find her. And she walked home 11 miles. And
Mm.
I ended up getting dragged on a 40-foot leash for 11 miles. I would ask you and the listeners, when was the last time you walked 11 miles? So my dog brought me right to her house. And that's when I said to Jay, my wife, I said, I don't know if I want to keep doing this anymore. So all these searches are not these incredible rescues. You have all kinds of circumstances. You can, all kinds of different circumstances for searches. My dog Michelle, who was wonderful, Doberman, who is as friendly and as smart as some of my acquaintances. She found two people alive and several not alive.
Mm.
And my Doberman Mikey was the dog that tracked the woman 11 miles, dragging me 11 miles, which was not easy. So, like I said, I got a million stories, and there are just 25 in the book. And they're interesting. I think I have several of the RAFs, the rich and famous, I mentioned in the book, my
Mm.
lessons with them. And like I said, I am grateful for what I've been given in terms of a wife who's tolerated me and doesn't even want to hear about any more dog stories because she could probably tell them as well as I could.
Oh.
And three kids, and my son. We sent him to Spain a couple of times. He speaks a fluent Spanish. And then I had him apprentice with me, and he's now training dogs on the side while teaching and has quite a clientele that he's built up. So I'm very happy with that. And I'm also grateful all of my children, as you know, Tara is a naturopathic doctor and she does nothing but help people. And my middle child, my daughter Kerry, is a teacher of the deaf and an organizer of dealing with deaf children in a dozen schools. So all of my children are in jobs that I would consider altruistic, and that makes me feel good. They're also giving, and like I said, I'm grateful. I'm very grateful.
Mm. Yeah, giving is so important, right? Being altruistic and
Yeah,
serving others is such a important part of living a good life. That's great,
yep.
Tom.
So I call me Mr. Gratitude.
I love it. I love it. So, can you tell me another story I share with the audience? Any other another story you want to highlight from the book, or just anything?
Um,
One of your favorites?
yeah, I got so many million stories. Oh yes. There was an elderly woman. She was the wife, the ex-wife of the gentleman who directed the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of other movies. And she was walking down the streets of Manhattan, and she heard whimpering coming out of a closed garbage can. And she took the cover off and reached in, and there was a little lab mixed puppy in there sitting in its feces crying. She picked it up and said, "You may be nobody to the world, but you're somebody to me." And that chapter is entitled Somebody. She named the dog Somebody and took the dog home. I love this lady, a true, beautiful person, but she was quite elderly and small and light. And she called me through her vet when the dog was about 60 pounds, a lab mix, and had dragged her down once. And then I got called, and I told her I'm going to be across the street behind a car. I just want to see what the dog does with you. And when she left the house, the dog, at 60 pounds, she probably weighed 95 pounds, was a tragedy waiting to happen. It was going to pull her down again. And I knew she would not physically be able to get this dog to cooperate. For all those people who are against electronic collars, and I tell it like it is, this was a case for an electronic collar. And I told her, she got the collar. I told her, put it on the dog every day, let the dog smell it, give the dog a treat, don't even turn the collar on, and then take the dog for a walk. And the dog then gets a very positive association with a collar because it means going for a walk and getting a treat. And then I had her turn it on. I had the remote. I was across the street. And I said, when the dog jumps up with you, I want it to hear a word it never heard before. I want you to yell in his face, "Foo." And she came out. I was behind a car. The dog started jumping up to grab the leash from her. She yelled, "Foo." And the second she yelled, "Foo," I hit the remote and gave the dog a slight jolt on the collar. And the dog's attitude was, whoa, I got to start respecting the word "foo." And I followed her, and maybe two more times the dog got very obstreperous. She yelled "foo," and I went from the electronic stimulation to vibration. And the collar has three things. It can give you a little electric shock. It can vibrate, which will startle a lot of dogs, or it can just be a sound. And after about 40 minutes of walking, the dog was extremely cooperative. It really changed this woman's life and made me feel great. We became quite good friends. She was one of the beautiful people adopting this dog named Somebody. And I've had arguments with people about the cruelty of an electronic collar, et cetera, et cetera. And I explain, when you know what you're doing and it's used properly, it's a very valuable tool. I hike with both my dogs are off leash. And I can tell you, my golden doodle, who's almost 3, when I walk 2 miles, he probably, I'm not embellishing, Broderick, he probably runs 10 miles. He's flying 300 yards through the woods, and I have an electronic collar on him. And I taught him, whenever I hit the sound, he just hears a sound. I taught him to come with that. So when he's out of sight, which makes me uncomfortable, I hit the sound, excuse me, and he comes back and gets a treat. So he's 99% reliable on the sound. He'll take a little bit longer if he sees a deer and starts giving chase. But then he'll eventually, and the sound on this collar can go, I think it's 1,600 yards, which is almost a mile. So these collars can be quite effective when used properly. So that Somebody's story was made me feel good. Like I said, I got a million stories, and the book, Dog Training It Ain't an Accountant's Job, will I think will lots of your listeners will enjoy the stories, and they're true. They're not embellished, and I got a million more stories.
Mm-hmm. And
It's
yeah,
been good.
I love it. The few that I've read, and that's one of them. It's I love the writing style. It's just like you're telling a story, and I love it. It's just like I can hear your voice as I'm reading
The,
these stories. I love it like that.
I
It's
got to tell
great.
you, Broderick, you're, I think, the third or fourth person who said to me, "You write like you talk."
Yes.
And I have heard that multiple times, and it's kind of what you just said. Well, that's my writing style.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to be uh, trying to sound too erudite. I just talk. I write as I talk.
Especially for
Um,
these stories, it's perfect.
exactly.
If you want to read stories, this is how to do it. Like, let me just pick this up and read a story. I love it. So we're coming to a close here in a few minutes. You said something earlier, and I want the audience to hear what you have to say about this. You talked about creating harmony in families with the dog. Why is harmony so important in general? And I know,
Well,
see, that having a dog there helps, but why do you think that's so important?
I guess the antithesis of harmony is conflict.
Hmm.
So, between harmony and conflict, there's no contest, and the dogs can create disharmony pretty easily. And one of my endeavors was always getting the husband and wife on the same page, where the husband says, there's a device called the gentle leader, which goes around the dog's snout, and the leash is attached under the snout, which eliminates 99% of a dog's ability to pull. And if you have a couple that is physically small and light, and they go get themselves an 85-pound golden retriever that pulls on a leash, it can be dangerous. If you want your 7-year-old child to walk the dog, it's impossible. So I've lost count over the years how many dogs to a gentle leader. And I've seen often where the husband doesn't want to use the gentle leader. He doesn't like the way it looks. And it's not a muzzle. A dog can yawn, bite, chew, eat. It can open its mouth. It just can't pull because the gentle leader actually pulls the dog by the nose. And if I pull you by the nose, Broderick, what's following is your head, followed by your body. And that's the concept with a gentle leader, and it works very effectively. You can take a Great Dane and basically hold the leash in your pinky and it won't pull. So I have seen husbands and wives in disharmony over the use of the gentle leader. And I've spoken at length to the husband to explain, number one, the dog is going to protest the gentle leader if it's not used consistently. If your wife uses it, because initially I never have said to somebody, get a gentle leader, put it on the dog, and you're done. I've always had to acclimate the dog to the gentle leader because the initial response is get this crap off my face. So with lots of treats, when the dog's not protesting it, I'm giving it treats, and within 15, 20 minutes, the dog's okay with a gentle leader. I tell people when they buy it, don't even open it, wait for me to get there. And I explain to the husbands, work with your wife, and I create the harmony so that your kids can walk the dog, your wife can walk, and nobody getting pulled down, especially in our climate when we're walking on slippery sidewalks. The slipperiest you guys get is with rain. We have the snow and the ice, and that gets pretty slippery, and nobody wants to get, I don't care if you're, young, healthy athlete, nobody wants to get pulled down. So creating the harmony is really important, that everybody, especially in training a dog, we all need to be on the same page doing the same thing. Otherwise, the dog ends up confused and resistant. I've seen many dogs resistant to the gentle leader because the husband refused to use it. And I've sat down with the husband and the wife and explained the value of the consistency, not just in general training, but in the use of the gentle leader with a dog. It's a tremendous tool. Harmony, if we could have worldwide harmony, everybody could throw their nuclear weapons away.
I know.
It goes from the harmony and extends to countries, to states, or to states in the United States, to countries. Harmony is the key, and there's a lot of disharmony now, and I hope for the best. I really do. Obviously, I don't have tomorrow's newspaper today, so we'll see what happens. But it starts in the family. You want an harmonious family, and that spreads to the extended family, to the neighbors, etc. And what we really need now is is worldwide harmony, especially with the weaponry that we have developed. I mean, there's nothing more important than harmony as I see it. So that's key. And what you do and the discussions you have promotes harmony,
Mm-hmm.
is very, very positive, and I appreciate that. That's for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think what you do is great. I mean, you're a doctor, you help people. Um, everybody who helps in their own way of being able to help. My wife's a speech pathologist. I always said when we were dating, I wish she would had been a nurse. So when I do the stupid things I do, you could fix my body, and I really didn't need much help with the speech, but it still worked out fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, harmony is a key. It is really a key, and you need to do what you got to do to promote it. And this is what your podcasts do.
Mm-hmm.
They promote harmony, and I'm grateful for that. I really am.
Yeah.
As I said, gratitude. I have so much to be grateful for, and I am.
Mm-hmm.
Not just because my wife still tolerates me. My kids still tolerate me. So it's good. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, Tom, we're coming to an end here. You are such a lovely person. I adore you, and I just had a feeling that you were going to share so much wisdom in your stories, and I really wanted to draw that harmony out because I just wanted you to speak a little bit more to it because you brought that up and you said it was something that was very important to you when you're working with families and their dog, and a dog is a part of the family. They're a member of the family, and so
Dog, believe me,
yeah.
people grieve for a long, long time, and I have pictures of all the dogs I've had over the years, uh, and my dogs have had a great life. So but there's still the grieving process,
Mm-hmm.
which is very real, and when everybody is on the same page with their pet dog, it really creates harmony. And dogs need harmony. Believe me, dogs are aware of a person's vibration much more than most people realize. And when a husband and wife is arguing, or a parent is yelling at a kid, the dog is extremely cognizant of it, very
Mm-hmm.
aware, and it creates anxiety and stress. So the antithesis of the stress and anxiety is harmony.
Yeah.
Um,
Love it.
so that's the goal. And one of the key ingredients necessary for harmony is compromise
Mm-hmm.
and giving in and saying, okay, let's work it out. You need to compromise. That's especially living together with people. There has to be compromise. When I think back to what we called Animal House, there was tremendous harmony. Four couples. It got a little more difficult when the women moved in. When it was just the four guys, it was easier. When the women moved in, because they were a little more particular in terms of the housekeeping than we were, the guys. But, that's to be expected, I imagine. But it all worked out, friend. And these four couples we're talking about the 70s, were still communicating and in harmony. I mean, these friends, we go back to the early 1970s. Um, that's for sure. So again, gratitude. I'm grateful for all of it. I really am. And I'm grateful knowing you, Broderick, who I met through daughter Tara. Yeah, so and if you get a dog, and I am in Seattle, you can be sure I'm going to there to just share some of the do's and don'ts with a dog. That's for
Oh yeah,
sure.
for
Uh,
sure.
Yeah, but you want to get a physically active dog because you're a physically active guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's would be my guess. So, and if you're in the water, are you in the water a lot? You
No,
swim?
I'm not. No, I'm
Oh,
not.
okay. I was going to say get a dog that's really with the webbed feet into swimming, but lots
Mm.
of dogs are. The Doberman doesn't have webbed feet. They don't swim well, but the Lab, the Golden Retriever, lots of dogs do.
Mm.
Yeah, so I'll be there to help you. You get a dog for sure, and if you get a dog and I'm not there, you damn well better call me, and we'll discuss it. And I'm going to tell you then get my other book, Dog Training Diaries, so that, as I said, it was judged one of the three best training manuals, starting with the housebreaking, the pulling on the leash, destructive chewing, etc., etc. I deal with it all, um,
Awesome.
and I enjoy it.
I know you do. You're great, man. Any,
You
this is, yeah, go
I was going to say, no, you're great.
ahead. Well, this is coming to a close. I literally can speak with you all day. I think that there's, every time you tell a story, you add another nugget to of wisdom, and I hope the audience has enjoyed this as much as I have. Any final words you would like to share with us before we sign off?
Uh, well, I haven't thought of any final words. I've been talking for an hour. If somebody's thinking about getting a dog or has a dog, I'd recommend both books. Um, Accountant's Job for just really fun reading, and the other one for learning how to deal with issues with your dog. And as I said, people actually are healthier when they own dogs because of the activity increase. You you physically and mentally have to do more, and that's
Hmm.
a good thing as opposed to sitting on the couch in front of the boob tube.
Right.
So, words of wisdom: get a dog and you know enlarge your in comprehension of the world through the animals.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. This has been great. I love you dearly, and until next time.
Broderick, I hope to see you soon when I come to Seattle or vice versa. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm in the Bay Area, so you have to come down to the Bay Area, California. Uh,
Got it.
it's-
All right. I'd be
uh,
happy to, man. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show and want to hear more inspiring and thought provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.